Greetings, students and parents interested in some of the COVID-related decisions that we're making at Camdenton schools for after-school activities and athletics. This video has been updated July 30th. It is 2:45 p.m. right now. And we've had a pretty significant change in what we can allow, and so we're updating this video basically for that reason. The change between this video and the first video out is that the MSHA is considering students who are enrolled in schools, even if they're enrolled virtually, to be traditional students, so they can participate in after-school activities. So that means several people got into the rules and know that non-traditional 1 and non-traditional 2 students have some rules to abide by. Things like if you're involved in an activity, if you want to be in choir, then one of those classes you have to take on campus is choir. And in order to participate in choir, you have to be in the choir class at school. So, but that's only for non-traditional 1 and 2 students. So with this interpretation, MSHA has made it very clear earlier today in a 10 o'clock Zoom meeting that students are considered traditional. With this COVID mess that we're in, if we're offering an in-person option and students choose to enroll full-time, but they will be virtual or distance learners, depending on how our school defined it, but even if they're not on campus, they can participate in after-school activities. So that's the big change. What's important in this first section of this document is really to point out that we've always had rules about illness and about students participating, that you need to be well before you return. We don't think it does any good to be tough and come back sick and you just get your teammates sick. Even more so now with COVID, we've got rules in place that will ask you to stay away if you've had a fever, if you've got a fever of 100.4 or above. If you're showing symptoms, we'll ask you to stay away. You'll have a 14-day quarantine period. Anyone in close contact with you will be quarantined until we know that they are not showing symptoms. If you have a positive COVID test, then you're out for 14 days. And all of these returns will depend on local health department rules. And if they change, then we'll change with them. We want to do what's right for the kid, not necessarily be able to enforce rules for the heck of it. So, for example, if you've tested positive and then you've been symptom-free, if 10 days has gone by, you've had no fever for 3 days, you're exhibiting no symptoms for 3 days or more, then the local health authority will release you, and then you could return to school and you could return to sports. We won't make you stay 14 days just for the heck of it. We will follow the local health department guidelines. So that's where we are with COVID and the expectations for showing symptoms and illness. In general, it's good for us to remember that participation is a privilege. You can't get it by doing something. More importantly, we don't pretend we can keep you healthy, whether you're on campus or off campus. If you come to campus after school, we can't tell you that fewer people or any particular after school situation is safer than you being out in the community or being in class during the day. In fact, we have to admit and make sure parents and athletes understand that there's a very good reason to think that participation in after-school activities is a greater risk than being in the classroom. Many of these activities expect you to physically exert yourself or to communicate in a loud manner where either you're singing out loud, you're blowing on an instrument, you're talking loudly, yelling at peers, coaches, hearing coaches yell at you, peers are yelling, communication with you across the field or a court. And so it's very easily believable that exposure is more prevalent in after-school activities. Just like we participate now knowing that we're going to ask you to go hard to the basket, or we're going to ask you to march in step for 4 hours in the heat, go this way, go that way, do this, do that. And there's a much better chance that you're going to twist an ankle or you're going to break a collarbone, concussion, heat stroke. There's a much greater risk of hurting yourself physically, and the same really should be true of this COVID situation. You should expect that your risk is higher than being in a classroom. So we ask you to consider that when you choose whether or not to participate. We believe that participation is a benefit. It is a a better thing than not participating. And we think all students should do it, but you know your situation better than we do. Any at-risk students with certain health conditions, a doctor has recommended that you don't. All those things, of course, go into your decision. As the parent, you are the ultimate authority on whether or not your students participate. We may ask more of you as a participant. We may ask you to sign a waiver, tell us about your health conditions. Have you had a fever? Are there any symptoms? Anybody in your family had symptoms? As a spectator, we may say you can or cannot come to a game. We're not going to have any spectators, or we're going to have spectators, but they must wear masks. We have spectators, but they have to sit in marked areas. They have to stay a certain distance away from others. You can't go to the bathroom. We won't have concessions. All these are things that we'll do based on what we think is best for the students participating or the community at large, and we'll lean on our local health officials and county health authorities to advise us on what's best there. Eligibility, we'll follow the MSHA guidelines, and as they change, we'll change with them. Schools who do not offer face-to-face learning cannot participate. Camdenton is. We are offering face-to-face option for learning, and so we will continue to offer those MSHA activities. MSHA has made it very clear today that you can participate as a full-time virtual student at Camdenton, because Camdenton is offering you the option of being in person. So therefore, we're qualified. We can offer the after-school participation to all the students that are enrolled and otherwise eligible. If you did not make the grades last year, if you are in trouble with the law, if you in any other way are ineligible based on any of the other bylaws, then those bylaws will continue to prevent you from being ineligible. So if you think any of that might be true, certainly contact my office and I can help you. Many students we've been talking to since April about grades and the credits they've earned and the opportunity to take summer school, the opportunity to sign up for 3-week grade checks this fall. All of those rules are still in effect. We still require students to be academically eligible before they can participate in athletics or activities. The screening we expect this year, we will ask students to take their temperature before they come to school, before they participate in a athletic practice or an activity. Your temperature needs to be 100.4 or below 100.4 before you can participate. You have to be able to say that you are symptom-free from the list of symptoms we provide: shortness of breath, sore throat, a new loss of taste or smell, vomiting, diarrhea, new cough, increased cough, any of those kind of things. The student needs to be able to daily say, no, I don't have any of that. They have to be willing to communicate that information to the school before we'll allow them to participate. If a student tests positive, the health department will be notified through the medical provider, but that student will be quarantined, will be out for 14 days. They'll be separated at a practice or an event if that's when this comes to light, or when symptoms are shown. We'll separate them so that they are not in close contact with others, and then we'll get them to their guardians as soon as we can, and then go through the process. As mentioned before, if the local health authority says 10 days with certain characteristics met is sufficient, then that'll be sufficient for us. Students will need to have a return to play document signed. They'll need to have a doctor examine them and be able to say certain things, say things like they weren't hospitalized with this illness, that they've been over a certain number of days, that there's no apparent heart conditions. There's a few different things that this form requires, and then that student will be able to return to play at a lower involvement, and then stepped up the next day, and then again the next day. There may be a 7-day process of increased activity before that student is released. This mirrors the return to play protocol for concussions. It's nothing new for those of us in Missouri. We've seen this now for a few years, that we step up our involvement until we're sure that the affected individual can return to play without side effects. Gatherings, ball games, rehearsals, practices. We continue to say practices are closed. We may try to find ways to step up closing of the track, practice fields, football, baseball, soccer, softball. If crowds form, if there's a problem associated with that, then we may need to try to close what we normally call public areas. We'd ask parents not to come walk the track when there's 150 kids practicing on the field. We'll spread them out as much as we can, and we certainly don't think we can put coaches in charge of other adults who might be on the track or walking, and we won't ask our coaches to be in charge of them and keep them 6 feet away from our kids. So we ask that you find another place to work out, walk around the parking lot, or other places where we don't have dozens and dozens of kids trying to stay apart from each other and stay healthy. But for now, we haven't instituted any closures or any roping or barriers that are going to keep people back. We just ask that you respect our needs to keep kids separated, both for their safety and so that if someone does get sick, we have a limited number of people that are close contacts and quarantined for those 14 days. I'm going to ask my coaches to wear a mask, again, to help them be considered non-close contact, so that when somebody is showing symptoms or gets sick, that we don't lose our coaching staff because of their willingness to be near kids and to care about kids. And hopefully that won't work against them and have them quarantined, which of course then would stop our teams from practicing if we don't have a coach to lead them. Coaches will attempt to make small groups and when possible within the bigger group, so that if someone's sick and they're in close contact, then we have a smaller group of people that have to sit out until they can be cleared. Equipment's going to be cleaned as much as possible. Students should wear masks as much as possible on the buses, sidelines, while waiting in lines for drills at practices even, during activity if possible. And this is something that football players with the Gators or soccer players may wear the same kind of things. Others that can wear whatever kind of masking that allows them to continue to push themselves physically, we'll ask them to do. No sharing of equipment, towels, personalized equipment we won't share back and forth. You need to bring your own water bottle. We'll try to wash all equipment at least daily, and if it's a situation where we can wash in between uses, we'll do that. And then parents should expect at some point, if numbers rise and county requirements change, that we restrict the number of people that are at ball games. We'll try to get participants in first. We can't have an event without a participant. That would include workers and scoreboard operators, things like that. And then we would do parents, and don't know how we would facilitate that yet. Whether we'd give athletes tickets like we would students graduating, and say, here, you can bring your 4 biggest supporters, or here's 6 tickets, or whatever that may be. Or if we set up some kind of process where we have a certain number of tickets to get out, and we offer those to the community when there's some left. That's there's several different plans that are being enacted right now in Springfield and other schools in our conference, and thankfully we'll be able to use them as guinea pigs and see how they work. And if our requirements change and we need to do something of the sort, we'll be able to pick and choose those which have worked best for others. We do plan to stream the games. We'd like to put media personnel as a preferred group because that will get information about our games out. We'll get pictures and videos and that sort of thing out to many people. We will try to include a streaming service if we can get it up and running and working well. Then we'll try to stream those games so that parents, grandparents, extended family, community members can see our games. So stay tuned for that. We'll try to put links out as soon as we have a reliable way of getting those games to you, both from middle school gyms, high school gyms, and fields as we can. Any questions, always feel free to call Jill Durnan at the middle school, Bill Kurtz at the high school, and we can answer your athletic and activity-related questions. Thank you.